What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. Today, we're going to be covering probably the most crazy, evil Uber driver you've ever heard of.
He was driving to the median. He was driving like 75 miles an hour down West Main.
It literally took over mind and body.
When a guy just shot some people in the parking lot.
I told the girls, run, no matter what, you run and do not come back.
I'm at the Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel and there's been gunshots in a car.
There's gunshots in a car?
I'm not a killer, and I know that I have killed.
I did not set out that day to premeditate to do anything like that at all.
Would I do it all over again? Hell yeah, I'd do it again.
Light out, everybody.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Lights Out. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm joined in the studio by the boys yet again. Austin.
Hey, man. What's up?
What's up, man? And Daniel. How's it going, man?
Good. How you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, back from a long break here.
Yeah, we're back from our holiday break, and sorry to kind of disappear on you for a little while. I realized we forgot to mention in that episode before our last one of the year that we were just taking off for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed that everybody remembered from last year, but then I realized we had a lot of growth this past year, and so there's a lot of you that are new probably had no idea that we take a 2-week holiday break at the end of the year. But we are back from that for another year of Lights Out. I think we're entering year number 3, 4.
Oh yeah,
is it 4 now?
I think it's 4.
Is it year 4?
I think it started 2020.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely did start 2020.
And
so,
I know, like, everyone probably thinks that we're just trapped in this room constantly. Like, the camera
sometimes
goes
it feels
out,
like
we're just
that.
like
we just stay
in
here.
stasis. Yeah. But yeah, we have friends and family back, at home, and I got a nice trip back to Michigan, which was nice.
Which is also the location for our episode today.
Yeah, we'll be in Kalamazoo today, which is across the state from me, but I've been there a few times. Got some great beer over there. It's a college town. I used to play back when I was in a band. We played a show or two out that way too, which is cool.
You miss those days?
Some days I do. Some days I'm like, damn, maybe I didn't realize how like easygoing and fun it was, but it was also a lot of work being in a band. You can't really slack off as much as you think you could.
Yeah, or you go nowhere.
Yeah,
I guess you could slack. A lot of bands slack off and then they end.
Fade away. Yeah.
But yeah, we're back for another great year for you guys. I mean, we have so much planned this year, so many new ideas we're bringing to the table and new episodes, and been brainstorming hard about some other types of content we can do here at Lights Out and potentially kind of get out of this room we're trapped in for a little bit and explore the world and see some sights, that might fit into the Lights Out universe. But today we're going to be covering probably the most crazy, evil Uber driver you've ever heard of. And this case takes place back when Uber first launched, because when you hear what happens, you're like, how the hell did Uber not have a way to stop this man or stop people from getting in the car with this guy? Because this guy just goes on a violent rampage for apparently no reason. I mean, we're still scratching our heads as to why this man, Jason Dalton, went on this violent shooting spree.
For several hours, too.
Yeah, hours on end. And it seems premeditated, but it's really hard to wrap your head around why. Why did he do this? And ultimately, he likes to blame Uber and claim it's a demonic app, which maybe it is. I don't know. I've been on a few Uber rides. I'm like, it's kind of from hell, honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, this case, I don't know. It's a big question mark for me. I don't know. Maybe going through it with you, I might unlock something in this case. But yeah, it's a big head scratcher, and it's horrific.
Yeah, it's very, very tragic, very sad for the victims of this guy, because it's so unnecessary, and it should have been stopped way before it got as bad as it did.
And it could have been stopped, in my opinion. We'll see when we dig into it, but I think there could have been definitely ways to put an end to
slow
this
him
guy's
down a little bit.
Yeah.
But before we dive into the horrific case of Jason Dalton, I did want to remind everybody that there are a few hoodies left of that lights out skeleton hoodie, the puff print on the front, super warm, with the weather being cold. Here in Colorado, it's been below freezing. I think it's going to be below freezing all week.
I know. I left. It was like 50 degrees outside, sunny, and I came back. It's chilly and snowy.
That's kind of how January goes here. I feel like January, February are like our coldest, snowiest months here in Colorado. So it's been pretty cold. I was just in Arizona, and Arizona was cold. I was going there for this warm sunshine, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go swimming. And it was like 50s, high 40s.
You got ripped off.
I was kind of pissed.
Arizona is supposed to be like melting tires.
I was going to the desert
and super hot.
Yeah, people are like cooking eggs on their cars and stuff. I'm like, this is not what I came for. Although it was beautiful weather. I mean, it was cool outside. Got to go outside, do some fun stuff, and luckily they heat their pools there, which is good. So you still got to go swimming.
They're like on the rare chance we'll need to heat this pool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, it was a good time. But go check out those hoodies while they're available. I think it's only XL and 2XL right now. There's also the lights out hoodie, which is the same design that Austin's actually wearing today from a previous collection. But yeah, there's just a few items left, and we are working on some new stuff too. We're very excited to unveil in the coming months. But it's a great way to support the show. I put everything that the merch makes back into the production of the show, into projects that we do, and just keep bringing good stuff for you guys. But let's go ahead and jump in to Jason Brian Dalton. So Jason Dalton, he grew up in Greenfield, Indiana, and then he later moved into Kalamazoo, Michigan during his teenage years. Kalamazoo is the home of Western Michigan University and one of Michigan's favorite breweries, Bell's.
I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm not into craft beer as much as I used to be, but yeah, you can still find it out here. Two Hearted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to try some.
If I ever get a little homesick, I'll head up the store and
go crack a Bell's or something.
Yeah.
Kalamazoo, and a lot of towns like to claim they're a safe town.
True.
Every town does. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, we're safe. Nothing bad ever happens here. But Kalamazoo, for the most part, is a safe town. It's a great place to raise a family. It's kind of that type of atmosphere. There's tons of places to hang out, live music, all that good stuff. But at Comstock High School, Jason was the co-captain of his football team, and he got good grades. And to his friends, Jason was easygoing and generally avoided confrontation. His two favorite hobbies were working on cars and collecting guns. He later went to Kalamazoo Community College and graduated in December 1992 with an associate's degree in law enforcement, which is kind of odd, especially as these events roll out. But he passed his law enforcement exams, but decided not to enroll in the school's police academy program. According to an old friend, Jason had tried to become an officer in the surrounding towns, but for whatever reason, he never did. And I'm curious as to why.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like physically, maybe he struggled with some
some
the
limitations,
physical exams, maybe some
possibly.
limitations there, or, why go through all of that, education, schooling to not ultimately become a law enforcement officer.
Right.
So Jason ended up moving to Laramie, Wyoming in order to attend an automotive trade school called Wyotech so he could learn auto body work. He later went on to work in a BMW office in New Jersey, and from there he worked as an auto body mechanic and later an insurance adjuster. But he eventually found his way back to Kalamazoo. He ended up meeting and marrying his wife, Carol, in 1995, and fast forward to 2016, Jason is 45 years old, and he and his wife had two kids together, aged 10 and 15 years old. His friends knew him as a family man, and on Facebook, he often posted pictures of his family and summers spent out on the lake. There was one particular incident that happened where someone broke into his garage one night, and the thief stole a handful of very expensive tools. And when Jason discovered that he had been robbed the next morning, his gun collection started growing from that point on. to put it simply. So by 2016, a year after this robbery took place, he had grown his gun collection to 16 different types of weapons, including pistols, rifles, and shotguns. By 2016, Jason's wife noticed that he had been acting a bit depressed some days. It wasn't really worrisome or strange, but no one really knew what was going on with him. Around this time, ride-sharing services like Uber had become extremely popular. I mean, we all remember when Uber came out. It was like so big.
Yeah, and I never even really took cabs before, but all of a sudden we were all using the
I never
ride-sharing.
took cabs either.
Yeah.
I just was always sketched out by cabs. I don't know why.
Same. Well, I don't know. They always smelled like cigarettes.
Yeah.
How many people have puked back here? I don't know. I was always a little grossed out.
So in 2014, Uber expanded into the Kalamazoo area, which was smart for them because there's tons of college students who need rides. And I mean, that's what better place to start a ride sharing service in college towns. So Jason signed up to be a driver in order to make some extra money on the side. And the goal for him was to save up enough money for his family so that they could go on a trip to Disney World. He passed the background checks and he didn't have any criminal activity in his record or anything like that, completely clean. And it was very soon after this that he began picking up riders in his silver Chevy Equinox. And for 2 weeks, Jason's driver rating was great and the side gig was going well. February 20th, 2016 was just like any other Saturday. Jason met up with a friend and checked out a few gun stores around town. And this was something that he did fairly often with his buddies. You know, it's just guns were his hobby, so that's what he did. That whole afternoon, Jason seemed to be in a good mood. At one of the stores, he bought a new gun holster and a jacket with a holster sewn into it. The employees of the gun store claimed he was smiling, joking, and even laughing while talking with the manager and other employees. He then told them he was going to, quote, enjoy the weather. It was the first sunny day that Kalamazoo had seen in a long while, and Austin knows firsthand, you don't see the sun that often in Michigan.
No, you do not. I was just back there for about 2 weeks, and I think I saw the sun for about 3 hours tops. That was about it. Yeah.
It's just dark gray.
I know. Right when the sun broke through the clouds, I was like, Jerry, we're going
Get
on
outside,
a walk. Let's go.
Everybody emerges from their houses and goes outside.
Exactly.
So I would expect there's definite like seasonal depression there.
Oh, 100%.
People are just are people grouchy and moody.
Yeah.
During the winter.
And you won't really see many people too, unless if you're inviting them over, or like there's an actual maybe event to go to. But yeah, people, it's so cold. Everyone like on the street, no conversations because no one wants to stop and say hi. So everyone's just like bundled
head
up
down,
just like where you got to go. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a dark place. That's why there's also a lot of, speaking of beer, you just drink.
That's
in
like
the Midwest.
What you do
through the winter. So you just hole up and get loaded.
Sounds fun. So after the gun store visit, he and his friends parted ways, and later in the afternoon, Jason decided to pick up a few passengers to make some money. At 4:21 p.m., he got a ping for his first ride. His name was Matt Mellon. Matt had left his car at a friend's house the night before, so his plan was to get his car and drive home. When he approached the Uber, Matt noticed a large German Shepherd in the back seat of Jason's Equinox. This was the Dalton's family dog, Mia. So I've never approached an Uber for a ride and there'd been a dog in the back seat.
No, I want to say it's a red flag, but it's also like Uber had just been introduced to the area, so it's kind of fast and loose out there. There's probably not as strict rules for the drivers or the passengers. So maybe that's what was going on. He just like didn't know or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be worried. Like, is this dog friendly? Like,
right?
Am I good to get in the car?
German Shepherds? Those are big dogs.
That's a man stopper right there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Matt was like, okay, this is weird, but you know, I guess I'll get in the front seat. And I mean, what else are you going to do? Like then cancel it. And then the annoying like canceling of Ubers and like getting charged. And
yep.
Like, I hate that Uber does that. Like that you can't just cancel. I think you can cancel for free in a certain amount of time, but
it has to be quick. If they're already there though, yeah, you'll get charged. And then you're going to wait around another 10 minutes.
So Matt just decided to hop in, sit in the front seat. And besides the dog, it was a typical drive. But during the ride, Jason's phone rang. It was Jason's son. He answered and he put it on speakerphone, which that's always lovely when Uber drivers do that. But Matt was only partially listening to the conversation. His son asked if he was coming home for dinner that night, when out of nowhere, Jason flew into a rage. It was at that moment that he stepped on the gas pedal and accelerated up to 65 to 75 miles per hour in a residential zone. So we're talking a neighborhood. Flying down the street. He ended up driving over a median, sideswiping a car, and driving through a section of woods. That would be terrifying.
Yeah, you can't get out too.
You can jump while the
fast.
car's going and possibly injure or kill yourself. So Matt's yelling at Jason, like, stop the car. I want to get out of the car. But Jason kept saying, well, Matt, you need a ride still. Like, I'm getting you to where you want to go. Even though they had already passed his drop-off point, Jason kept driving at high speeds. Meanwhile, Matt desperately kept pointing out houses they were passing, saying that this was his destination and that he desperately wanted to get out of the car. He eventually convinced Jason that they needed to stop. A woman named Casey Black witnessed the Chevy Equinox slamming on the brakes in the middle of the street and Matt stumbling out of the car. Casey and Matt then called emergency services around the same time, and after being transferred twice, Matt was able to report what had happened. Let's listen to Matt's 911 call.
911.
Hi. I'd like to report an erratic driver.
Where?
I was just in the car with him. He was my Uber driver, and he was weaving in and out of lanes. He sideswiped the car on West Main Hill. He was driving to the median. He was driving like 75 miles an hour down West Main. I got his license plate number when I jumped out of the car.
What's the plate, please? Okay, what kind of car is it?
It was like a Chevy Equinox.
What color?
Silver. He had a dog in the back seat. He was my Uber driver. Like I had to get a ride back to pick up my car from last night.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way to my friend's house, like, it started off normal, and then all of a sudden he just started driving super crazy, blowing stop
Did you want to
signs.
talk to an officer, or you just want me to put out an alert over the radio?
I just wanted to report it because I don't want someone to get hurt.
I understand what you're saying, but I need to know if you want to talk to an officer or if you want me to have an officer, just have the officers just be on the lookout for it.
I just want to be on the lookout. And
okay, thank you.
report to Uber because I don't think he needs to be picking
Okay, you're
people
going to
up.
have to do that, sir, not us.
All right, I can do that.
Thank you.
Wow.
The attitude is kind
my
of
God.
off-putting. It's like this, I don't know, it's not like this guy's just casually calling emergency services. He clearly just went through something, and then she's just trying to cut him off and be like, well, do you want to just do you want him on lookout, or do you want him to come out there? And I was like, I don't know.
You're the one who works for the emergency services. Like, you should be handling this situation. Why is it my job to make these decisions for you?
Right.
Somebody's driving erratically in a residential zone at 65 to 75 miles an hour. I think you should probably send an officer out.
Yeah.
To stop this guy.
Right. So very strange response from that. And that was also after he had already been transferred, because I guess there was like a jurisdictional thing. So
Seems like they were overloaded with calls or something like
Right.
that. And she was like having one of those days.
Yeah, I guess. But
in hindsight, I wonder how she feels. Because, I mean, had she taken more charge and called Uber, I mean, probably should call Uber. And again, this is in the early days, so maybe it was just kind of, nobody really had an idea of like how to handle these situations. And I'm sure there probably wasn't any training to, hey, if one of these ride sharing things goes haywire, like, call the ride sharing company and make sure that you let them know what's going on so that they can disable the driver's app so he doesn't pick up any more people.
Right.
And the fact that he's like, I don't want anybody to get hurt, like that should also signal to the dispatcher, like, hey, this is serious. I'm really concerned about this individual. I almost got hurt on this ride, let alone the poor dog that's in the back getting thrown around. And
true. Yeah. I didn't
like,
even think about that.
Guys getting slamming on his brakes, and you have a German Shepherd in the back seat of a small vehicle. Like, that dog slamming it, like,
right.
That dog could possibly get hurt.
Poor
too.
dog. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I don't know. Very frustrating phone call, though, all in all.
Whether your resolution is to save money this year, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. I'm a huge fan of HelloFresh. I've actually been a paying subscriber for probably the past year or so. And without it, I would not be eating as good and as cheaply as I do. I mean, with how busy our schedules are, it's so hard to find time to go to the grocery store.
Dude, you won't catch me in a grocery store these days.
I can't stand those places.
I know. I get lost and I'm like, what was I looking for? Where's this? So it's back on aisle 7 and I get lost because they're built to be confusing and to get you lost so that you start looking at everything. So you start grabbing crap off the shelf.
You go in for 3 items, you leave with a cart full.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just don't do that anymore.
And honestly, like the produce at our grocery stores, I feel like are not great.
Yeah. They're old.
For some reason, like I'll buy avocados or I'll buy bananas and it feels like overnight they're already
gone,
moldy.
Yep.
Or moldy straight. I've had tomatoes straight from the grocery store that were just moldy.
Which is impressive for HelloFresh because I know they do it in the boxing, and you would think that in transit it would kind of get old, but no, it's sealed up tight. It's in those little refrigerated boxes. It's really nice.
I've probably had hundreds of HelloFresh boxes. I've never had rotten produce.
Same.
Yeah, their support is awesome. I mean, I'm a huge HelloFresh fan. I've got my meals actually being delivered today, so I'm excited to see what I've got cooking tonight. There's so many great recipes. We love the ramen recipes this time of year. The katsu ramen from HelloFresh is actually banging.
I've never had the ramen from there. I should try that out.
It's really good. You like make the broth, like homemade broth, and it is just absolutely delicious. My daughter she slurps up those noodles.
And how are those noodles? Are they
really good? Yeah. Super easy to make, and they never cease to amaze me with the recipes that they've got. I mean, sometimes I'll cook a HelloFresh meal and I'll be like, this is restaurant quality.
And if you just do the veggie options, a lot of the times I do the veggie options, I'll just use my meat, like my steak or my chicken that I have in storage, and just add that to the meal. And they usually have a little footnote where it's like, you can add this protein. It works perfectly.
We love HelloFresh, as you can tell, and you will too. Everything's simple. Ingredients are pre-measured. The recipe cards are simple. I mean, my daughter can nearly cook these and she's 1.5. I mean, it's that easy to follow. So if you haven't tried HelloFresh, go to hellofresh.com/lightsoutfree and use code lightsoutfree for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at hellofresh.com/lightsoutfree with code lightsoutfree.
So yeah, after that phone call, Matt then claimed he tried to contact Uber to let them know that Jason was a danger and that he needed to be deactivated as a driver immediately, right? That seems like the
no-brainer,
the reasonable response here. But the problem was that Uber did not have a 24/7 incident response team. They claimed that they did have it though, and I tried to find an older version of Uber to look into this, but I couldn't really find it. Apparently though, they claimed 24/7 incident response team is available. But obviously Matt tried to contact them. He'd been trying to reach them. He couldn't get through.
Which you should be able to just contact their customer service number and there'd be an option to report an emergency. So depending on, we don't know, what those calls sounded like or anything, but I have a really hard time believing that Uber's legal team would have ever allowed this service to launch without this in place. So my guess is that there was something, it just wasn't prevalent enough for the average person to find it real easily. Like it should have been in the app at the press of a button, right?
Yeah.
Not like, oh, we have this number hidden at the bottom of our website page. And like, I mean, you got to think too, Matt's probably kind of distraught. He just went through this kind of traumatic experience and he's probably just like, maybe not even thinking clearly. So he's just trying to hurry and find this number, and it shouldn't be hard to find.
No,
right? It should be a button you press.
Easy. And I think what we're seeing here in a lot of this is like, since Uber is so new, they didn't have like the GPS tracking like they do today to make sure everybody's safe, because there were those cases where, people were getting picked up and then never seen again. So I think what we're seeing here is they didn't get ahead of the problems. They were basically like, not that they were going to let the problems happen, but basically the problems are going to occur and we'll mitigate it afterwards, after the fact. So not a great move here. And they were so frustrated. Matt went to his girlfriend. He's like, what should we do? I called the police. I tried to contact Uber emergency services. We're not getting through. So ended up Matt's girlfriend posted to Facebook, hoping that people around Kalamazoo would see She's warning people to be on the lookout for this Uber driver in a Chevy Equinox.
Which, smart move,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Like, at the very least, and Facebook then especially was much bigger than it is now, especially with, us millennials. I mean, I'm still a Facebook user, but
I deleted mine a few.
did you?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the only one that still uses Facebook. I love Facebook.
There was a time, probably circa 2014. I mean, everybody was on there, but yeah, now
You're
it is.
like, nope.
Yeah, I think mine was probably about 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then it was hard though, because I'm like, I got to stay in touch with everyone, but I wiped it. If you want to contact me, you can find a way.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
But Facebook, I mean, even to this day, is a lot of people. I mean, especially when it comes to true crime, a lot of, we work with a lot of families who utilize Facebook to raise awareness. It's still, I think it's still the largest user base for a social media network.
Yep. Worldwide. For sure. Absolutely.
So it's a great place to still network and get the word out for things like this. And so, in my opinion, that was a smart move by her.
Yeah. And so I'm proud of them that they didn't just stop there. So they
did what they could.
Yeah. And meanwhile, several other witnesses called in 911 and reported the Chevy Equinox driving erratically through town. So everything's becoming aware here. After Jason dropped Matt off, he returned home, drank a glass of water, retrieved his Glock 19, which is a 9mm handgun, and strapped on his son's bulletproof vest. His son had gotten the vest from the Explorer program with the Kalamazoo County Sheriff's Office. It was formerly used by Michigan State Police, so it sounds like his son was interested in becoming a police officer the same way that his father once was.
That's very interesting.
Jason also put on the jacket he had just bought with the holster sewn to the inside. Then he got back in the car and activated his Uber profile again to pick up more passengers. Now, this was around 5:40 p.m. when the next passenger requested a ride. Uber hadn't deactivated Jason as a driver since Matt couldn't reach their emergency contact, so Jason went on to try and pick up a 15-year-old named Macy at an apartment complex called The Meadows. This is very Midwest-esque apartment complex here. The apartment complex had several parking lots in between the long stretches of buildings where many families lived. And that day, like we were saying before, it was a surprisingly nice day for Michigan winter weather. And the sun was out, the snow was melting. Everyone comes out of the woodwork. We've been holed up for a while here. So few kids could even be seen riding on their bikes. Everyone's trying to get outside. So when Jason arrived at the apartments, he claimed he couldn't find Macy. He called her and accused her of giving him wrong directions. Frustrated, he hung up on her mid-conversation. Macy then sent a few text messages or messaging through the Uber app. I'm not really sure, but she asked if he was close, but she wasn't getting a response. Jason, meanwhile, kept driving around the complex, still looking for her, and he ended up coming across Tiana Carruthers. Tiana had just finished exercising at home, and her daughter had a few friends over. The 5 girls, including her daughter, wanted to go over to another friend's house, so Tiana offered to walk with them. As they crossed the street, Jason pulled up next to them in his car, and he asked Tiana if she was Macy. And I think this is also a time where now they really emphasize having profile pictures for the riders. I think this was pre-profile pictures. I think they did have profile picture for Jason, but so he's just confused. He doesn't know who he's looking for. He starts accusing Tiana that she's Macy. But she's like, clearly, no, I'm not. It's not me. So after arguing about it, Jason's getting frustrated. He accelerates down the street and then he turns his car around and he heads straight towards Tiana. He then pulled out his pistol and pointed it at her through the car window. When Tiana saw the firearm, she immediately jumped between Jason and the young girls and began shielding them. And she told them to just run as fast as they could. Jason ended up shooting a total of 15 times, and he hit Tiana 4 times in the liver, both legs, and her arm. Jason then sped off in the car, leaving the apartment complex. Neighbors who heard the gunshots then ran outside, found Tiana on the ground. She was still alive, and all she kept repeating, she just wanted to know if the girls were safe. And here's the audio from a 911 call made by one of the neighbors.
Okay, so female's down. She's been shot.
Don't move.
Okay, where's the person that shot her?
I don't know. The car sped off, please.
Okay, ma'am, we're going to get the people going there, okay? I just need you to stay on the phone so I can get further, okay?
Okay, yep. I believe it's happening out here. Please don't move. Please don't move. They coming, okay? Please don't move. We got the kids. Please don't move. Just stay there. Okay, we'll get them. You just calm down. Don't move. We got them. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. You can hear her there. I mean, imagine being shot 4 times and she just still honed in on, like, are the children safe? Are the children safe?
Incredibly brave, man.
So luckily all the children were safe too. And Tiana was transported to the hospital once emergency services arrived. She ended up surviving the gunshot wounds after multiple surgeries. Her arm had reconstruction surgery. Both her femurs were broken and her liver had also been hit. After the injuries, she couldn't walk and she had to undergo years of treatment and rehabilitation. After recovery, Tiana later became a motivational speaker, and here's an interview with her after the fact talking about her experience.
I told the girls, run, no matter what, you run and do not come back. I tried to get under a car, but then when I realized, if I just keep moving, then he just continued to shoot. So I lay there and I pretended that I was dead. And I just kept telling myself, God, you're gonna make it. You have no other choice. You're gonna make it. And I just kept telling myself, I just hope the children are okay. Lord, please, I can never forget myself. Just make sure that they're okay.
You physically blocked some of those bullets from where those kids were going.
Yes. And one of those children was hurt. I don't think I could bear a child losing their life. Would I do it all over again? Hell yeah, I'd do it again.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
That's so inspirational, man.
Seriously. After the first shooting, dozens of phone calls were made to emergency services now. And with the previous reports of an erratic driver in a silver Chevy Equinox, and now a shooter with the same vehicle description, police started to connect the dots. The deranged driver was now obviously also the shooter at this scene. So after the shooting at the Meadows, dispatchers ended up calling Matt Mellon back for more information on his Uber driver because they didn't take that information before.
God.
So here's
just delayed everything.
Yeah, seriously. So here's that phone call.
Hi, my name is Tammy. I'm calling from Public Safety. Did you call earlier about the Uber driver?
Yeah, he picked me up from my house.
Can you give me a description of him?
He had a black glasses, mid-40s, white male, kind of salt and pepper hair, goatee, I believe, or maybe some facial hair. I know he had facial hair. I can't remember if it was a beard or...
Was he overweight?
Yep, he had a black dog in his back seat.
So he was a heavy build?
Yep, heavier built.
Did you notice if he had freckles or pockmarks on his face?
I did not. I was sitting in the front seat, but I was honestly like staring at the road. You know, it was nuts. I mean, once we hit like Monroe Street over there by West Main, in front of Henderson Castle, he just started hammering gas pedal and was pulling out in front of everyone. And
he didn't notice.
It just seems like at the very least that initial 911 call, the dispatcher should have at least gotten that description because they would have had that information already on deck and could have connected the dots far sooner than they did.
Yeah. So much like Uber, we're seeing this mitigated after the fact rather than people trying to get ahead of the problem.
Matt then sent in a screenshot of Jason's Uber profile picture along with his name. Around 5:45, Jason's Uber account was still active. After speeding away from the crime scene, he ran a red light and sideswiped the car of a man who was going to get ice cream. The driver called 911 to report the accident, and now police knew they were specifically looking for a silver Chevy Equinox with damage to the front side of the vehicle. After the hit and run, Jason knew his car would stick out like a sore thumb, so he made a phone call to his wife. He asked her to meet him at his parents' house in Cooper Township because he needed her car. When she asked him why, he said that he was attacked and shot at by rival taxi drivers. Which,
isn't that wild?
That's a wild story to tell, but apparently his wife believed him and they met up at his parents' house. When Jason arrived, he went inside and retrieved a Taurus 9mm handgun. He forced the gun into his wife's waistband and told her that it wouldn't be safe to go home without a firearm. He also told her to stay home from work and keep the kids home from school on Monday, which I can only imagine what his wife was thinking. She's probably like, what is going on here?
I would be in shock if my significant other was just doing this and saying these things. I wouldn't even know what to do, really.
When she asked what was going on, he said he wouldn't tell her, but he said if she watched the news that night, she would understand. So that's a very critical statement that he makes there, because to me, that tells me that he's planning what he's about to do next.
Yeah. I'm going to do something. I will be on the news. I mean, it's a little ambiguous, sure, but clearly if we were talking about firearms and he's switching cars and he's heading out to go do something and he's going to be on the news later.
Yeah. He's consciously adjusting to the situation at hand as well. It's not just like somebody who would be completely out of their mind likely wouldn't have the mental capacity at this point to then go switch vehicles and switch weapons and completely switch up what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that's definitely important to keep in mind as we go further. But he also said they probably wouldn't mention him by name, but she would know that they would be talking about him. Then Jason told her he was going to withdraw a few $100s from an ATM before taking the black Chevy HHR. Now the Chevy Equinox that police had been searching for wasn't even out on the road. He returned home for a moment to switch weapons. It's believed his Glock 19 had actually malfunctioned, so he left it on his basement workbench and grabbed his Walter P99, which is also a 9mm pistol with an extended magazine. Again, Jason activated his Uber app and continued to pick up Uber passengers, but now his car didn't match the make and model verified on his Uber account. So he had to explain to all of his future passengers that his usual car he drove had broken down, so he had to switch to the HHR for a bit. And I guess this worked with passengers and they believed his story, which, I mean,
it's new.
Why would it?
New? Yeah. It's like, why would anyone lie about this? Who knows?
For the next several hours, he didn't seem to have any more outbursts. There were no more reported incidents until 10 p.m. that night. And that was when he came across the Smith family. The mother was named Lori and the father was Rich, and they had two children named Tyler and Emily. Rich worked as a construction manager and he was incredibly close to his 17-year-old son, Tyler, who was a soccer player at school and known for his carefree attitude. At the time, he was dating his first love and high school sweetheart, Alexis. His mother, Lori, said the couple had been inseparable, and that night was a special occasion. Rich, Tyler, and Alexis headed to Sealy Kia dealership to look for a new truck for Tyler. Tyler loved off-roading, so he wanted something that he could take out on the trails near the Sleeping Bear sand dunes. Alexis waited in the car while Rich and Tyler checked out the options in the Kia parking lot. From a distance, Jason spotted them walking from across the street, so he proceeded to drive into the parking lot and park the car. He then grabbed his handgun, got out of the car, and started walking towards Tyler and Rich. He called out to them and asked what they were looking for. Before they could even respond, he shot at them 16 times. Alexis witnessed the shooting from inside the family's Range Rover, and for safety, she hid in the car until Jason left. And then she got out, ran over to Tyler, who was lying on the ground, and got his phone out of his pocket to call 911. Meanwhile, a witness also called 911 just before Alexis to report the shooting. And here's that audio.
Hi, we just drove by the Kia. What road are we on? 94 Business, and a guy just shot some people in the parking lot.
Okay. Are you still near the scene?
Yeah, we're at the Burger King, a couple of places down. There's a car sitting in the lot. I can't tell. That's some kind of SUV.
Okay. All right. Did you hear shots fired? Is that?
Yeah, that's what made us look. And there were two guys laying on the ground and one guy pointing a gun at them.
All right. Hold on. You're actually within Kalamazoo City's jurisdiction. I'm going to transfer you over to them, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep, just stay on the line.
So tragically, when emergency services finally got there, both Tyler and Rich were pronounced dead at the scene. Part of me can't help but think that they were targeted because it was a father and a son together. And I go back to that phone call with his son, and I have to wonder, was there something to that phone call that just triggered something with Jason?
That's one of my biggest questions is, and I know Matt Mellon has talked about listening in on that conversation. He's like, I wasn't really listening in it. And, you know, you don't want to be rude. So he's probably just there and they're having a conversation. He's minding
Probably on his
business.
phone or, you know, kind of half listening.
But man, I would love to hear what that conversation was, because I think that was something that was the triggering event, was that phone call that set him off into this spree. So yeah, I would love to know. And that's interesting you point that out. I never even considered that, the father and son dynamic here.
Well, he's driving around and I can't help but think now he's bulletproof vest, weapon. He's on a mission now. And I can't help but think he's driving around and he sees clearly a father and son at the car dealership. And, you know, they're sharing this great memory together of getting a new vehicle. And
he just wants to destroy that.
He wants to annihilate that. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what he does.
In less than a half hour after the Kia dealership shooting, even more emergency phone calls came in, reporting another shooting at a local Cracker Barrel about 5 miles away from this dealership. And I can't even imagine working for emergency services in Kalamazoo, generally a safe town, as we were saying. Not much goes on. It's kind of just a normal college town, you know, nice to raise a family.
There's lots of violence in this way.
And then all of a sudden, this one day, you're getting multiple shots fired at multiple different locations with this erratic driver on the loose. I couldn't even imagine. But here is another emergency phone call from that Cracker Barrel.
Kalamazoo County 911.
I'm at the Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel, and there's been gunshots in a car.
There's gunshots in a car?
Yes.
Okay, has anybody been hit?
2 cars have been shot up. There's 3 people in one car, and one guy is not moving.
Do you have a vehicle? Where's the shots fired from?
Dad, I got it. We're at Kalamazoo Cracker Barrel.
We're at Cracker Barrel. I got that. Where's the vehicle where they were shot from?
They're both in the parking lot.
They're both in the parking lot? What's the vehicle that fired the gun?
It's a blue HHR, dark blue, and it drove off right as we pulled up.
Oh, it's a blue HHR?
Yes.
Do you have a plate or anything? Which way did they go?
No, because right as we pulled up, he was pulling out, and he just took off out of the entrance.
All right, you said it was a blue HHR, correct?
Yes.
So apparently Jason had fired multiple shots into 2 cars that were in the parking lot. The victims were all friends and families who had recently seen this acrobatic show in Kalamazoo, and later that night they met up at the Cracker Barrel. 2 of them were Mary Lou Nye and her sister-in-law, Mary Jo Nye. Mary Lou was a 62-year-old daycare worker at Emmanuel Lutheran Church's daycare center. Mary Jo was a 60-year-old retired teacher at Calhoun Community High School in Battle Creek. In her career, she had become the president of the Literacy Council of Calhoun County. Another victim, unfortunately, was Dorothy Brown, a 74-year-old woman who worked for Guardian Finance and Advocacy in Battle Creek. Another victim was Barbara Hawthorne. She was a 68-year-old grandmother who retired from the Kellogg Company in Battle Creek after 22 years. Jason apparently had approached the van where Mary Lou was sitting in the driver's seat. She was alone in the other car, and he opened fire. When the rest of the women in the adjacent car began screaming, he shot several more rounds into their vehicle. And after the emergency phone calls, police arrived and investigated the vehicles. It appeared that all of them were fatally wounded. Barbara was the only one that was still conscious, and she could still barely speak with the officers. Apparently she was even able to get up and walk away from the car. Then the officer noticed some movement, though, down toward the sedan's floors, kind of near Barbara's feet. Turns out there was 14-year-old Abigail Kopp. She had been inside the sedan with the 3 other women during the shooting, and she had taken a bullet to the head, but was still alive. Barbara wasn't Abigail's biological grandmother, but Abigail had always called her Grandma Barb. They were super close. And it was later discovered that Barbara actually pushed Abigail down to the floor to safety when the gunshots started. Unfortunately, Barbara did later pass away in the hospital from her wounds. But I guess the upside of the story is that even though Abigail had been shot in the head and suffered a fractured skull and brain trauma, she was able to make it to the hospital. Her parents met her there, and she had to undergo several invasive surgeries. A few hours into her treatment, unfortunately, her vitals did begin to fail and the staff began CPR. Vicky, who is Abigail's mother, was basically at the point ready to just accept her daughter's fate. Doctors had even called Abigail's time of death officially, but as Vicky leaned over her daughter's body to grieve, she actually felt her daughter move. Abigail then even grabbed her mother's hand and squeezed, which is wild.
Miracle, man.
After Abigail's vitals returned, she still had to go through several more operations, and one of the surgeries involved removing a section of the frontal right lobe of her brain and also placing a metal plate in her head where the bullet shattered her skull. After all these surgeries, she was in a coma for several days, and her mother stayed by her side the entire time. And miraculously, Abigail ended up surviving. She spent 6 months in the hospital. It took her 2 months to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And after almost 2 years of treatment and rehab, Abigail was eventually able to return to school. That is just...
What a survival story.
That is just wild to me.
I mean, the perseverance and strength needed to get through something like that is unbelievable. I mean, she was pronounced dead.
Yeah.
And she came back and is now back to living her life. I mean,
it's incredible.
You don't hear that very often, but that is amazing. After the Cracker Barrel shooting, Jason continued to pick up passengers, Uber still, unaware, seemingly, or not doing anything about the situation. And according to those passengers, he was seen acting like everything was fine and was even humming to the radio. Supposedly, one of his passengers jokingly asked if he was the serial shooter, and he would say no. And if there was any tension or awkwardness in the car, he would just say that he was tired. Meanwhile, police were pulling over as many HHRs as they could find, and they had reportedly pulled over around 8 HHRs that night. Finally, at 12:39 a.m., they pulled over the correct HHR with Jason inside. At first, he just sat inside the vehicle, and police at this point were expecting a shootout with him or a suicide by cop situation, but he ended up listening to police orders, and they were able to get him out of the car without any altercations. They also found one of the murder weapons in his vehicle with him. He was immediately arrested and then brought in for questioning. We actually have some dash cam footage of his arrest. We'll play that now.
Keep your hands out where we can see them. Yep. Clear on it. Take it for a moment. Can you take it back a little? Clear on it. Multiple cars. Felony stop. Student registration of DA2696, DA2696. I don't think this is going to be it. Sample. Figure we got one in custody, one weapon off of him.
City's clear, one in custody, one weapon off of him.
619 can now be headed that direction then. Clear on it. City has one in custody, one weapon off of him. Figure out if I can get units to shut down Wallbridge, head north, and Pitcher north.
That footage is kind of bizarre to me.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, you finally found the HHR that you're looking for, and you hear one of the officers saying that they're conducting a felony stop on Jason at this point. And I've watched a lot of police dash cam footage. You know, I even trained to be an officer back in the day. And based on what I know about felony stops, they did not conduct a felony stop here. So a felony stop would be, they don't approach the vehicle like that. They're going to actually order the individual out of the vehicle at gunpoint. Because A, you're dealing with somebody who just went on a shooting spree. So the chances of him turning and shooting an officer at this point is very, very high. And the fact that they're just very nonchalantly, like their guns are drawn, but they're exposing themselves to major danger here by walking up to the vehicle in the way that they are. And a felony stop would be, they'd be at their vehicles, guns drawn, they'd have them in multiple directions, and they'd be, all right, step out of the vehicle, walk backwards to us, get down on your knees. And they would do it that way.
Gotcha.
Which would be better for them.
Do you think that, because I know they did have kind of a back and forth for a while before they actually approached the car, but do you think it's because it's like they knew there wasn't a threat? I know they told him to put his hands out of the vehicle and stuff like that.
I assume because he did that they felt like he was compliant, but I just feel like that was still very risky on their part. Because I mean, at any point he could open fire, and I mean, I guess their approach was decent, but I feel like that was a very risky move on their part. Rather than just ordering him out of the vehicle where you have plain sight of him, and if he does try anything, you're far enough away that you're not like, had that officer initially walking up to his door, he could have easily pulled around and started shooting at him.
True.
He would have been wide open to that.
We know he has a massive collection of firearms. He could have had, whatever in that car. I think they only found one weapon, but that's also confusing, where someone who just went through a shooting spree, and when they pull him out of the car, he's just so nonchalant and like chill.
Yeah. And the officers are really chill too. I feel like in other situations like this, they'd be throwing his ass on the ground.
Tense. Yeah,
it'd be like a high energy stop here. And everybody just seems very nonchalant to me. And I think part of that could just be they don't do this a lot. And so they're just, it's just kind of a lack of experience, or maybe because he was complying with the officers' orders and putting his hands out, they felt safe enough to do it that way. I just find it a bit bizarre, because I feel like any other department out there would have handled this with much more aggression.
Yeah, after multiple shootings.
You're talking about a serial shooter who most likely, when you look at the statistics with people who go on serial shooting sprees, they often take their own life, or they suicide by cop, or they just go out.
I know they expected that going in, but the end of it, I guess maybe this is just like best case scenario at the end where everything was calm, but
Do you ever feel like money is just flying out of your account? I know for me, it feels like that almost every day, because I'll look down and my Rocket Money app will tell me this subscription just pulled $14.99 out again for the month. And that goes for so many other apps that I'm subscribed to, whether it's streaming services to just, so many apps on my iPad now take a subscription. And in order to try out a lot of apps, you start the free trial, and then before you know it, you forget about it, and you're getting charged on a monthly basis. And before I was using Rocket Money, it was extremely hard to even know what subscriptions I had. So there was months and months and months where I was just paying for subscriptions I was no longer using and just wasting money. And nobody likes to waste money. So start using Rocket Money. It's the personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you even lower your bills. I love Rocket Money. I actually pay for a premium subscription for Rocket Money because not only is it great at finding those unwanted subscriptions, but it also helps you cancel them at the click of a button or touch of a button. It's that simple. You don't have to get on chat or call in order to cancel them. Rocket Money does it for you. It's great because I can see all my subscriptions in one place and manage them very easily. And they'll even try and get you a refund for the last couple of months of wasted money, which is amazing. And they can even negotiate to lower your bills for you. I sent them in my Comcast internet bill, and they're able to get a little bit of money off that every month. I think it was like $20, which was awesome. For some bills, they can even lower it up to 20% off. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. It's just an all-around amazing personal finance app. I love that you can set up alerts. It lets me know when things are being pulled out of my bank account, my credit cards. It helps me budget. It just is the best finance app that I've used, and I've used a ton of them. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/lightsout. That's rocketmoney.com/lightsout. Check out rocketmoney.com/lightsout. So after they get Jason into custody, they go and search his home, where they found his large gun collection, including the other murder weapon, which was in the basement. They also found countless empty shell casings he used to make his own ammunition. In the house, he also had a bow and arrows, and there was also airsoft guns, 2 loaded magazines near a TV remote, and socks in the living room. There were stray bullets and spent cartridges around the house in random drawers and underneath seat cushions, body armor, musket balls, and a box for firearm accessories that also had a children's 3rd grade learning program in it. So very interesting.
All across the house.
In the backyard, police noticed multiple bullet holes in the fence near children's playground equipment. Apparently, neighbors had complained of Jason shooting guns in his yard for hours at a time, which, definitely not allowed to do that in a residential area.
No.
For that very reason. After arresting Jason, officers immediately thought it was strange that Jason was acting like this easygoing guy, even though he had just gunned down multiple people throughout the day. He was questioned by Detective Bill Morian and Detective Corey Girangelli. At first, he wouldn't tell them much. He kept pleading the fifth and refused to talk about the murders. Allegedly asked for a lawyer at some point, but wasn't given one. But the longer they kept him in the interrogation room, the more he started opening up to their questions. He then mentioned the murder of Mary Lou, the first woman he killed in the Cracker Barrel parking lot. He admitted that he had approached her while she was in the car and asked for $1 to spare to, quote, make America great again. She declined and then shot her and the others. He ultimately admitted to all of the shootings. When he finally explained how he shot his victims, he had this to say.
I'm not a killer, and this is what I know that I have killed. I know that you guys are gonna have a hard time believing this, but it literally took over mind and body.
The Uber app?
It was red when I first started. Okay. I switched from red to black. Okay. But it's in that black mode. Yeah. It literally has control of it.
Okay. I'm sure the officers are like, what are you talking about, dude? And there's debate on if he actually believes this or if this is him trying to set up this insanity.
Planting the seeds for that, yeah.
But here's some more context for you.
Did you bring my phone up to me so I could see it?
I have the Uber thing on here.
Can I see it, please? On Uber. When I clicked it, it went ching. Thinking there was like a double head that popped up. And I pressed that button. And that's where all the problems went after me. I've experienced the full body takeover. It literally has control of me. I would have never done any of these atrocities that have happened.
Right. What made you get your firearm thing? The app, the Uber?
What made you put the vest on too?
You remember shooting people?
There's like little spots where it pops in.
Yeah, they're like, so the app made you then go home and get your bulletproof vest
and a firearm. Come on. Also, we know that it's just so weird. He had been halfway through that ride with Matt Mellon, and then he kind of snapped, or whatever you want to call it. But he seemed, to Matt, he explains, he's like, it was seemingly a normal trip up until all of a sudden that phone call with his son. And then, but he's trying to blame it on the app, but
that a devil head pops up.
Right.
Come on, dude.
Clearly there's a lot more going on though. When he opened the app, this is what he claims. He saw what he thought was the Eastern Star, which is a symbol that's, connected to the Freemasons. And he also saw a devil head.
One thing I just wanted to mention, if you're a little confused about the Eastern Star. So if you look at what the Eastern Star is, it is a symbol that the Freemasons use, but the actual shape of this symbol is an inverted pentagram.
Right.
So yeah, it's weird that he's referring it. I mean, it's clear he's looked at Freemason conspiracies and Illuminati conspiracies and, devil worshippers and all that kind of stuff. So he's it's weird that he wouldn't just say it's a satanic symbol or something like that. It's weird that he goes to like Eastern Star, but if you're not familiar with that symbol, it is the shape of a inverted pentagram.
I don't even know what theory he's really even running with, but on February 22nd, 2016, they charged Jason with 18 counts, including 6 counts of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 8 felony firearms charges. He was held without bail. According to prosecutors, Jason was a married father with 2 children. He had, no apparent known issues at home. He had no emotional troubles, no known financial troubles. He had no police record or anything in his background that stuck out. He wasn't overly political, religious. He wasn't known to be into any deep conspiracy theories, and there was no evidence that he was ever into any extremist ideologies. So it was hard to understand how all of a sudden he was just capable of doing something like this. And the big question is, which unfortunately, spoiler alert, I don't know if we'll ever get any solid answer to what his motives were. That's the big question mark here. I'm not sure. I mean, if you had to put together what's going on up until now, what would you guess?
This is hard because we just don't know the extent of the evidence in regards to his extremist beliefs. If I had to guess, just speculate, my opinion would be there's probably more there than what we even know, and the authorities have downplayed it or just not released that information to us. I mean, it seems to me that goes a lot deeper than what we know, or perhaps, as we found, especially in the past, the authorities just don't have that much knowledge around these conspiracy theories, or don't really understand it to the extent that they understand it today, right? Especially with all of the events that have transpired since then when it comes to these types of conspiracy theories. So if I had to guess, he was probably deeper down that rabbit hole than they led us to believe, or just weren't willing to release.
Okay.
And I do think that clearly had some effect on him. Whether it was the lone motive for doing this, I can't say, obviously, but I do think that may have had some type of effect on his mind state, and potentially even one of the reasons to possess so many firearms. And again, I'm careful when saying that, because a lot of people get upset and think I'm generalizing all people have a lot of firearms. I'm not. I'm just saying that there are some people who, become very paranoid when they go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, and, they end up owning a lot of firearms as a result of their beliefs in those conspiracies. But again, there's plenty of people who possess a lot of firearms, completely normal people, no issues.
Right.
But I do think in this particular case with Jason,
you think it was more paranoia?
I think there's major
picture.
paranoia there. Yeah. And I don't think he just got these ideas out of thin air, randomly out of thin air. I mean, the fact he's referencing Eastern Star, Freemasons, to me, that's a big indicator that he's been delving into conspiracy theories. And for all we know, maybe they just weren't able to find the evidence to back that up. But there probably is more there.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with possibly his, I don't know, unknown family issues at play here. Because I always fall back on that phone call, which is when he snapped. What is going on there with the relationship with his son? What's his life at home like? We don't know.
There's more to the story there.
Yeah. And also, obviously mental illness is possibly
a lot we don't know there as well.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that he goes to a Cracker Barrel, a family establishment, to me seems targeted. Seems to me that he was on the look for families specific to destroy that night. And so he happened to drive past one at the dealership, and then he thought, well, where's a place that a lot of families go to? Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. And to tie into that theory, I mean, he did come across Tiana, who was with a bunch of kids. Yeah.
So I just kind of think it does go back to his family situation. There's more there that we don't know.
Yeah.
And something happened, or there's some history there.
Yeah. His defense attorneys requested a psychological evaluation to see if he was competent to stand trial, and he was sent to the Michigan Center for Forensic Psychiatry. So this, just to be clear, this was not to determine if he would plead insanity or if he was insane. This was just to see if he understood the charges against him and could assist in his own defense. The process was planned to take about 60 days, and his trial would be set for later that year. By April, he was declared fit for trial. His first victim, Tiana, who survived, later testified in court in May during a preliminary hearing, and she answered a few questions, but all of a sudden Jason began to interrupt. He started making bizarre comments, and he was later dragged from the courtroom.
Let's see this.
Yeah, here's a clip of this.
You know, I saw it.
Intimidator cars. No, if they get bags, these old people, they have these old black bags that are called they're black. They're black bags that people drive around and look at them. It gets real. It's like, hey, it's time people look. And then that's when to tell people it's time to get to temple.
You don't need to listen to your attorney, right?
Yeah, you need to get to temple because you need to get going because it's called intimidating.
You need to be quiet in today's proceedings, okay?
Yeah.
If you have anything to say, you whisper to your attorney. That's today's rules, okay?
Get his ass out of there.
Yep.
Scumbag. Can't help but think this is all for show here.
Yeah, right. And why he can't walk. I don't know. So yeah, that's possibly just more planting the seeds of trying to get the insanity plea.
Or on the flip side, it could be some sort of mental health issue. But again, he's being psychologically evaluated and they're not at least reporting anything.
Yeah, he was competent to stand trial. So several defense motions were later filed, which caused the trial to be delayed. This would be delayed for quite a bit. The defense wanted none of the police interviews with Dalton to be used in the trial. Apparently, at the first interview, Jason had told police he did not want to speak with them, and he supposedly requested an attorney, but wasn't given one. Prosecutors argued that the first interview continued because police were still trying to determine if there were more victims that needed immediate attention, but I don't know why you would violate someone's Miranda rights for that exactly. It doesn't make sense. But supposedly, Jason also didn't want to talk during the second interview, but after drinking a soft drink and talking about God and pet dogs, they just greased him up and he agreed to more questions. The court later ruled that only a portion of the first interview could be used in court and all of the second one was permissible, but another motion was filed by the defense. Again, they claim that detectives violated Jason's Miranda rights. The Michigan Court of Appeals later decided that neither of the interviews would be allowed at trial because of these motions. His trial was delayed until 2019.
So based off of that, it does seem like the detectives definitely messed up here.
Yeah.
By not stopping the questioning at that point when he requested an attorney. And then it's also interesting that he did request an attorney because I think that shows evidence of competency, at least in that moment. He
knew what was going on.
He knows what's going on. I'm being questioned and I should probably not answer any of these questions. So there's that.
But it's not like they didn't have enough evidence outside.
Yeah. I mean, the interviews is kind of irrelevant because, I mean, they found the murder weapons. They located him in the vehicle he was seen shooting in. So, I mean, it's kind of a open and shut case for them.
Yeah.
The prosecution and the defense expected to start questioning 12 potential jurors before the trial. The strongest evidence of premeditation was that Jason was wearing a bulletproof vest, had switched cars and firearms, and he had told his wife that he would be on the news that night. The mandatory sentencing for first-degree murder in Michigan is life without parole. So to avoid this, Jason was still considering an insanity plea. While in jail, Jason's phone calls were recorded, and on January 6, 2019, he was heard talking to his mother. He said they wanted to film it, quote, like the OJ trial, and he said he felt like a, quote, dancing monkey in a circus ring. During the call, his mother urged him to plead guilty, and on January 7, 2019, that's exactly what he did. Jason pled guilty to all the charges against him. His defense attorney said he made the sudden decision for personal reasons so that his family and the families of the victims wouldn't have to go through a trial. But it was also revealed that his defense attorney previously told him that the insanity plea was not an option A forensic evaluation found that Jason didn't meet the legal definition of being insane. Immediately after, Jason decided to plead guilty, which kind of put two and two together. Is like, oh, well, and people think that if I plead insanity, it's somehow better for me. And that's clearly what he thought, but that didn't work out. So he's like, well, the next best option is to just plead guilty at this point.
Yep.
The next day, he called his mother and told her it was over. He also called an unknown woman and almost explained why he did what he did. We actually have that audio. Let's listen to that.
It's over. I stopped this circus train. I didn't want to agree to being premeditated because that day, I did not set out that day to premeditate to do anything like that at all.
Do you believe him?
No, not for a second. I don't think anyone straps on a vest and gets a firearm and switches cars and talks to your wife about committing something. I don't.
Even if like that morning, he didn't necessarily like premeditate the entire day's events.
Sure.
At some point, he made a conscious decision, and it seems like it was after that phone call with his son that I'm now going to put this plan into motion. And he clearly was somewhat prepared for what he was going to do.
Yeah.
I have a hard time feeling like it was all random and he just randomly decided to go home, get the bulletproof vest. Like, what was the bulletproof vest for? That's my question. Is like, it's almost like he was planning to eventually get into a shootout with somebody or police, and there was some type of end to this plan for him.
Yeah.
And maybe he just decided against it. Maybe decided, well, I actually do want to live, so I'm not going to do this.
Right. By the
I
end
don't
of it
know.
all. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind. No one puts on a bulletproof vest without expecting violence, right?
On February 5th, 2019, Jason Dalton was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He's currently being held in a medium security prison at Oaks Correctional Facility in Manistee, Michigan. In 2021, Matt Mellon, Jason's first passenger that day, filed a lawsuit against Uber for not having the emergency support they claimed they had on their website. He believes some of the victims could have been saved if he had been able to contact Uber, and they could have deactivated Jason's driver account before he went on this killing spree. At one point, Matt was seeking up to $1.2 million, and in April 2023, actually, Uber reached a settlement with an undisclosed amount of money. And not long after the shootings, Uber added 24/7 phone support for emergencies. And now they have the button in the app that you can just press, and I mean, it's much better than it was, but
yeah, way safer now. But man,
very scary.
Yeah, and I think just some failures on a few different fronts, but obviously hindsight 2020. But I don't know. I feel like way more could have been done to prevent some of these.
Shame on Uber, man.
Yeah,
they could have prevented all of this from happening had they just had the emergency support available in a very easy way. So yeah, it's a tragic case. And I guess, the one positive is those victims that survived, and there's, it's now easy to get emergency support, which I've never used it. So I can't even say firsthand how good it actually is.
Right.
Is it actually work?
True. I have no idea. I would hope so. I would hope it would at least be a deterrent for people who are Uber drivers who are considering committing crimes, that they know that on the other end of that app, there is some emergency services there.
Yeah, I'm curious if any of you out there have had to use the emergency support option on Uber before, have had any issues or experiences with Uber drivers where, something happened and you had to report them, and what that experience was like. Because I'm sure I know there's tons of stories out there of still to this day of Uber drivers doing horrible things, committing crimes and worse. But I'm curious if any of you have had a personal experience. If you'd care to share, I'd be interested to hear about that. But it's important to just be vigilant, though, because at the end of the day, you are getting into a vehicle with a stranger.
True.
You're putting your trust in Uber that they vetted this individual, and you don't know to what extent. It's not like you get to see their record or see what Uber knows about this particular driver.
Right.
So I think in any situation with any ride sharing service or taxi, I think it's just always good to be
Have your wits about you.
Yeah, just, make sure you're going where, sometimes in the past I've like double checked like the route to make sure, like, so
Same.
sometimes they take their own route sometimes, and I'm like, why are you going this way? Like, why are you taking me out this way? Like, because you just never know. I mean, like Jason, he had a number of positive rides. He had positive ratings. It's like, just because they're a highly rated driver, it doesn't stop somebody from having a bad day or just snapping and something happening. So I think just being aware of where you're at, who you're with, and being on your phone is good during rides. I think most of us do get on our phones and look at our phones, and just, be ready to, contact the authorities or report this driver to Uber if something ever goes wrong. So
for sure.
But
definitely best to be safe out there for sure.
Yeah.
And also, not to be that guy, but also understand that cases like these are extremely rare. This is a circumstance that is
you don't necessarily live in fear of something like this happening, but I don't know. I tend to just err on the side of just always be prepared for the worst.
Yeah.
And it's hard to live that way, because it's easy to be, kind of, you don't want to live your life in fear of, but it's just like, I feel like you have to have this mindset, especially nowadays, like anything could pop off. Like I went to 2 malls over my trip, and I cannot stop myself from thinking about what happens if somebody comes in here and decides to go on a shooting spree. And that thought is constantly in my mind in most public places I go to now. And I'm just hyper vigilant, looking around. I'm always being aware of like where my exits are. Like even when I'd go into stores, I'm like, if something happens, my mind was going to, I'm going to go into the back, out the doors.
Yeah. Where's the fire
escape?
escape?
I'm trying to figure out a plan of escape. And it sucks that that's the reality of our society at this point. But I feel like it's just, I don't know, it makes me feel better now that I have a child. Like I feel this extra sense of like, I have to protect my family at all costs. So what am I going to do? And it's just,
I think there's a healthy realm between paranoia and awareness. So as long as you're not getting into like, you're just paranoid of like, this is going to happen.
Well, I think if you're paranoid, you're not even going to those places.
Right. True. You're just staying home.
You're just staying home.
Absolutely.
So those that just don't even go to the places, I think that's where in your eyes might be more paranoia. Cause I mean, I'm not going to stop myself from living my life. And I know that statistically the chances of that happening are super slim.
Yeah.
But I can't help but just that thought crosses my mind at this point. And it's something that I just am like, it's not going to happen today, but I'm just going to make sure that I know, I'm not oblivious to what's happening. I was
just going to use that. Yeah. Oblivion, I think, is just, if you're oblivious to these things, that's a problem. If you're also hypersensitive and paranoid about it, that's also a problem in my eyes. But
yeah, so it's hard.
Being aware though, knowing where fire escapes are, I don't think that's being overly cautious. I think everyone should know those things like that, or what to do in certain situations. I think that's just preparedness.
Yeah, because I think when you start realizing is that anything can happen at any point, anywhere.
It
doesn't matter like where you are.
Yeah.
Like obviously big public places like that are, the statistics are, probabilities a little higher maybe, but anything could happen anywhere. So it's like, you can't just be like, I'm not going to go anywhere because I'm scared something's going to happen. But
yeah, my cousin won't go to movie theaters anymore.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to go to movie theaters too, because that Aurora hit so close to home for me. I was just like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really the only other takeaway I can take away from this is just awareness and
stay aware,
stay safe,
stay
safe, and be ready for anything, I guess. But we're gonna end this episode the only way that I feel is appropriate, and that's to hear from those impacted by this tragic crime committed by Jason, and as always, our thoughts are with the victims and families affected by this. And so we're going to end this episode with hearing some of the family's impact statements from court. But with that, we'll catch you guys next week.
I've cried a billion tears. Oh, how my gears turn. Oh, how my tears. Now my gears turn, thinking, why would you hurt me? I pause, replay, and relive every single moment. Pause, play, rewind, slow, fast. I just can't keep living in the past. I am physically and mentally overwhelmed and exhausted from trying to process both losses at the same time, keeping up with the demands of my daily life and somehow learning to live without them. I am not myself anymore. I always feel alone and destroyed despite having endless supportive love and family and friends and a community as a whole. I have no expectations or dreams anymore. Ever since that night, every family gathering, event, and experience in my life is painful, as I now have to plan for how to memorialize them not being there instead of feeling the joy and happiness of our family experiencing it together. Any joy that I do feel is always overshadowed by sadness, all because of your choices.